between Attila the Hun and the destruction of the West. It is 451 AD. Attila had destroyed everything in his path as he galloped through Gaul with his horde of horse archers and auxiliaries. The Roman commander, Aetius, rode hard to the city of Orleans with his newly found ally, Theodoric, king of the Visigoths. We simply do not know the size of their combined armies, but historians believe they were easily outnumbered by the Huns. They arrived just in time. Sangiban, the ruler of Orleans, was about to surrender to the Huns. A fierce battle began in the suburbs of the city. Attila, never afraid to retreat and regroup if things looked bleak, pulled his men out of the street fight and made for the open country. If there was to be a battle, Attila wanted it out in the open spaces where the Hun cavalry could have free rein. He pitched camp near the town of Chalons. The Huns drew up their wagon laager and prepared to crush Aetius and his ragtag army. Attila made no attempt to fight until mid-afternoon. Instead, he stayed inside his wagon circle. Was he looking to provisions for his troops? Or was he playing mind games by making the Romans wait for hours in battle formation? When he finally did march, most of the daylight had gone. But the Romans had no difficulty in seeing the huge army which formed up behind him.
Attila's plan of attack was pretty simple, and that was to put the Huns themselves in the middle of the battle line and head as quickly and as directly across the field of battle and then tear apart the center of the enemy army.
Attila placed himself in the center of the line of battle with his own Huns. On his flanks, he placed his barbarian allies, the Ostrogoths, Arderic, and Gepids. These would have been more standard cavalry, armed with spears and swords, and relying on mobility and momentum to inflict damage. On the other side of the battlefield, Aetius placed his Romans on the left flank. He ordered Theodoric and his Visigoths to line up on the right flank. And in the middle, he put the cowardly Sangiban. It came as no surprise when Attila prepared to strike at the weakest point of the Roman line.
The Romans had placed the weakest part of their force in the center. A person who was a commander of a group of barbarians who had just, in the past few weeks, been negotiating with Attila to surrender. The Romans placed that force in the middle so that they couldn't get away and couldn't run away. That's precisely where it turned out Attila's force struck. Attila's strength hit Roman weakness.
Aetius was no fool. His plan was to draw Attila into the center. This would enable the left flank and the Visigoths on the right to cut off the Huns' line of retreat back to their wagon camp. It was a ruthless plan. Aetius was prepared to gamble the lives of Sangiban and his men to help save the Roman Empire in the west. Attila ordered a mass cavalry charge straight at the Roman line. The Battle of Chalons was engaged. The Huns smashed into Sangiban's troops, smack in the center of the line. Saint-Germain fell back, and the Huns pushed forward in pursuit. But Aetius found the going tough. Attila's tribal allies fought hard, and although the Romans hemmed them in, they did not have the sufficient numbers to completely outflank and envelop them.
His idea was that if his Visigothic allies on the right and Romans and Franks on the left could sandwich in Attila, and he could enfold them on the flanks and do some type of canine encirclement.
The Visigoths had been held up by fierce resistance on the right flank. The battle was incredible in its ferocity.
The casualties must have been staggering, although the numbers given in the sources are just for literary effect. But surely thousands of men were perishing that day.
The battle swung to and fro. Because it had begun so late in the day, the light began to fade quickly. If the Huns were able to fall back to their wagons, it would be very difficult for the Romans to attack a fortified position in the dark.
It was late in the afternoon, and it was getting dark. They fought until they couldn't see each other, and then the battle continued into the darkness. It was one of these battles without end. The Visigoths chose to attack the flank of the Huns. So it was the Visigoths who saved the day.
Their added weight seemed enough to turn the tide of war in Aetius' favor. For now, Attila was being pressed on both flanks, and his Hun warriors were being closed down and denied the space they needed to fight effectively.
Then, just as the tide of battle was swinging Rome's way, tragedy struck. In the thick of the fighting, Theodoric, king of the Visigoths, was thrown from his horse. Before he could get to his